The vast darkness of space held many secrets, but none more feared than the Cathara Empire. For 3,000 years, these creatures had ruled the galaxy with claws and fangs. They stood 8 feet tall, their bodies covered in thick armor plates that could stop laser fire. Sharp claws extended from their hands like deadly knives. Their eyes glowed red in the dark, and their hearing was so good they could track prey from miles away. The Cathara lived for one thing: the hunt. Their entire society was built around finding the most dangerous creatures in the galaxy and capturing them. Not killing them, that would be too easy. They wanted living trophies. The more deadly the creature, the more honor it brought to capture it alive. Commander Zektar was the best hunter in the Empire. His ship, the Crimson Talon, was a massive vessel painted black and red. It carried 20 of the most skilled hunters ever born. They had traveled to over 100 worlds. They had captured creatures that other species thought were myths: giant space whales that could swallow starships, rock monsters from volcanic planets, ice serpents that froze their prey solid with a breath. Every hunt followed the same pattern. The Cathara would arrive at a world, study the local predators, then descend to capture the most dangerous ones. They used nets made of energy, stun weapons, and their own incredible speed and strength. Once captured, the creatures were taken to massive arena complexes where they fought for the entertainment of Cathara crowds. The Cathara had a simple rule: if it could bleed, it could be hunted. If it fought back, the hunt became more fun. Their capital world was covered with enormous zoos filled with captured beasts. Tourists from across the galaxy came to see creatures they had only heard about in scary stories. Zektar stood on the bridge of his ship, looking at star maps. His second-in-command, Hunter Veltarn, approached with a data pad. "Commander, we have received new orders from the High Council," Veltarn said, his voice a low growl. Zektar took the pad and read the mission details. His eyes grew bright with interest. "A new world has been discovered?" "Yes, Commander. Sector 7 Alpha, a small blue planet orbiting a yellow star. Our scouts say it is unlike anything we have seen before. The data showed a world that should not exist. Most planets that supported life were either safe garden worlds or dangerous death worlds. This planet was both and neither. It had frozen poles and burning deserts, vast oceans and dry lands, thick jungles and empty grasslands. The weather was wild and unpredictable. Storms that could level cities, earthquakes that split continents. But most interesting was what lived there. "Look at this data," Zektar said, pointing at the scanner readings. "This world has more different types of predators than any planet we have found. Giant lizards with teeth like swords, cats that hunt in packs, bears that can break trees with their hands, ocean beasts larger than our ships." Veltarn nodded. "The scouts say the entire planet is like one giant hunting preserve, but there is something else, Commander." "What?" "There is an intelligent species living there. They call themselves humans." Zektar laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Intelligent life on a death world? How did they survive?" The data showed the humans were strange creatures. They had no claws, no fangs, no armor. They were not very strong or fast compared to other species. Their hearing and sight were average. They seemed to have no natural weapons at all. "They must hide underground," Veltarn suggested. "Like the mole. People of Zerion Prime." "No," Zektar said, studying the information. "Look at this. They live everywhere on the planet. Cities on every continent. They even have settlements in the most dangerous areas. How is this possible?" The scan data showed human cities built next to active volcanoes. Human farms in areas where deadly predators lived. Human ships sailing oceans filled with creatures that could sink them in seconds. It made no sense. "Perhaps they are not as weak as they appear," Veltarn said. Zektar dismissed this with a wave of his clawed hand. "No species without natural weapons can be truly dangerous. They probably use simple tools and hide when real predators come near. The question is, what do we do with them?" The mission orders were clear. The High Council wanted specimens from this death world. The most dangerous predators would be captured for the arenas, but the humans presented a unique opportunity. An intelligent species from a death world had never been captured before. The entertainment value would be enormous. We will take a few humans for study, Zektar decided. The scientists will want to understand how such a weak species survived. The rest will go to the fighting pits. Imagine the crowds when they see creatures from the same world as giant predators. The Crimson Talon changed course toward the human world. Zektar was already planning the hunt. It would be simple. Arrive in orbit, scan for human settlements, then capture a few dozen specimens. The humans had no space technology to speak of, so they could not fight back. It would be over in a few hours. He walked to his private quarters and looked at the wall covered with trophies from past hunts. Teeth from the shadow beasts of Krellin, scales from the fire serpents of Vulcan, claws from the ice tigers of Frostheim. Soon he would add something new, perhaps a human skull or hand. The idea of hunting intelligent prey was exciting. Most creatures fought with instinct alone, but intelligence might make them more unpredictable. They might try to hide or use tools. This could make the hunt more challenging and therefore more rewarding. Zektar had no way of knowing that he was making the biggest mistake in Cathera history. The humans were not just another species that happened to survive on a death world. They were the species that had turned a death world into their personal hunting ground. Every creature that had ever threatened humanity was either dead, tamed, or hiding. The greatest predators in the galaxy were about to learn what it meant to become prey. The year was 2387, when the Crimson Talon reached Earth's solar system. Humanity had just started to explore beyond their home planet. Small colonies existed on Mars where people mined red dirt for metals. Another settlement sat on Europa, one of Jupiter's frozen moons where scientists studied the ice oceans below. Captain Jake Morrison was patrolling the outer edges of the solar system in his ship, the Intrepid. It was a small vessel compared to the massive alien ship that suddenly appeared on his scanners. The alien craft was 10 times larger than his ship, black as space itself with red markings that looked like bloodstains. Unknown vessel, this is. Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force, he broadcast on all frequencies. Please identify yourself and state your intentions. The response came not in words but in weapons fire. Red energy beams struck the Intrepid's engines, crippling the ship instantly. Morrison's bridge crew was thrown from their seats as the ship shook and emergency alarms screamed. "Sir, engines are dead," reported Lieutenant Lisa Rodriguez from her station. "We're drifting." Morrison tried again to contact the alien ship. "We come in peace, we mean you no harm, please respond." This time a voice answered in perfect English. The words were spoken slowly, like a predator savoring its prey. "You will prepare to be boarded. Any resistance will result in immediate death." Morrison looked at his crew of 12. They were explorers and scientists, not soldiers. But they were human, and humans did not surrender easily. "All crew, this is the captain," he announced over the ship's communication system. "We are about to be boarded by hostile aliens. We will defend our ship and ourselves. Remember your training." The aliens cut through the Intrepid's hull with tools that melted metal like butter. Dark shapes moved through the holes they created. When they stepped into the ship's corridors, Morrison got his first look at humanity's attackers. They were monsters from nightmares, 8 feet tall with thick armor covering their bodies, claws that could tear through steel, red eyes that glowed in the dark. They moved with the confidence of creatures that had never lost a fight. Commander Zektar led the boarding party. He expected the humans to drop their weapons and beg for mercy. Most species did when faced with Cathara warriors. Instead, the humans opened fire. Lieutenant Rodriguez had taken position in the main corridor with Engineer Pete Walsh and Medical Officer Amy Carter. They used their ship's maintenance tools as weapons. Welding torches became flamethrowers. Magnetic lifts became projectile launchers. Even the medical scanner was rewired to emit stunning energy bursts. "Take cover!" Rodriguez shouted as she fired a modified plasma cutter at the advancing aliens. The beam struck one Cathera in the chest, burning through its armor. The creature roared in pain and surprise. In 3,000 years of hunting, no prey had ever hurt a Cathara warrior. The humans fought like cornered animals, but with intelligence behind their desperation. They used the ship's layout against the invaders. Narrow corridors became kill zones. Maintenance shafts became escape routes. Emergency systems became weapons. Walsh had rigged the gravity controls to create a trap. When 3 Kythera warriors entered the cargo bay, he reversed gravity and slammed them into the ceiling. Then he restored normal gravity, dropping them to the floor where Amy Carter was waiting with an electrified medical probe. But the aliens were too strong and too many. For every Kythera that fell, 2 more took its place. The humans were forced back, corridor by corridor, room by room. Captain Morrison made a final stand on the bridge. He held a makeshift weapon made from ship components, a device that fired superheated metal fragments. When Zektar entered the bridge, Morrison aimed it at the alien commander's head. "Stay back," Morrison warned. "I may not be able to kill all of you, but I can take you with me." Zektar studied the human captain. Most prey begged for life when faced with certain death. This creature was threatening to fight to the end. It was interesting. "You have fought well for such a weak species," Zektar said. "But this ends now. Surrender and you will live to see tomorrow." "What do you want from us?" Morrison asked, not lowering his weapon. "You will come with us. You will serve a greater purpose." Morrison looked at his surviving crew. They were wounded and exhausted but still ready to fight. He made the hardest decision of his life. "We surrender," he said, lowering his weapon. "But know this, we did not give up because we were afraid. We gave up to protect our people." The Kythera took 4 human prisoners: Morrison, Rodriguez, Walsh, and Carter. 3 Kythera warriors were dead, and 5 more were wounded. Zektar could not understand how such weak creatures had caused so much damage. The journey to the Kythera homeworld took 6 standard days. During that time, the humans were kept in a cargo hold behind energy bars. But they were not idle. They observed everything. They studied their captors' technology, language, and behavior patterns. "They're confident," Rodriguez whispered to the others. "Too confident. They think we're just another conquered species." "Let them think that," Morrison replied. "We'll learn everything we can about them. Their weaknesses, their technology, their plans." Walsh had managed to hide a small tool during the capture, a multi-scanner that could analyze alien technology. "I'm already picking up interesting data about their energy systems," he said quietly. Carter, the medical officer, was studying the aliens themselves. "Their anatomy is different from ours, but not alien enough that we can't understand it. They have weak points just like any living creature." When they arrived at the Kythera homeworld, the humans saw a planet covered with massive arena complexes. Millions of Kythera lived in cities built around these entertainment centers. The entire civilization was focused on hunting and displaying captured prey. The humans were taken to a holding facility beneath the largest arena. They found themselves in cells with dozens of other captured species, furry creatures that whimpered, in corners. Scaled beings that hissed at anyone who came near. Bird-like aliens that had lost their will to fly. All of them were broken, defeated, waiting to die in the arenas above. Except for the humans. While other prisoners sat in despair, the humans began asking questions. They wanted to know about the arena layouts, the guard schedules, the feeding times. They offered comfort to frightened aliens and formed alliances with stronger species. The Kythera guards found this amusing. Prey that thought it could become predator was entertaining. They looked forward to watching these confident humans learn their place in the food chain. They had no idea that the humans were already planning their escape. 3 days after arriving at the Kythera homeworld, the humans learned their fate. High Predator Rakthor, the supreme leader of the Kythera Empire, had decided to give the galaxy a special show. The humans would be released into the bleeding forests, the most dangerous hunting preserve on the planet. The bleeding forests covered half a continent. Ancient trees grew so tall their tops disappeared into clouds. The ground was covered with red moss that looked like dried blood, giving the forest its name. Creatures lived there that even the Kythera avoided. Shadow cats that could become invisible, thorn bears with poisonous claws, and flying serpents that hunted in deadly swarms. You will be given basic supplies and a 12-hour head start, announced Warden Krelvax to the 4 humans. Then our greatest hunters will come for you. Try to survive long enough to provide entertainment. The basic supplies were a joke: some dried food, a water container, and simple tools that would break after a few uses. Most captured species died within hours in the bleeding forests, either killed by the native predators or recaptured by the Yi. Hunters. Captain Morrison gathered his team in their cell for final planning. We've studied this place for 3 days, he said quietly. We know the guard rotations, the forest layout, and the hunting patterns. This is our chance. The other prisoners think we're crazy, Rodriguez whispered. They say no one survives. The bleeding forests. That's because they're thinking like prey, Walsh replied. We need to think like predators. Amy Carter had been studying the medical data about Kythera physiology. They have excellent night vision and hearing, but their sense of smell is weak. They're also overconfident. They expect us to run and hide. So we do the opposite, Morrison decided. We hunt them. The transport ship dropped the 4 humans at the edge of the bleeding forests at dawn. Massive trees stretched up like the pillars of a cathedral. Strange sounds echoed from the shadows. Growls, screeches, and calls from creatures that had never seen sunlight. Morrison split his team into 2 groups. Rodriguez, you and Walsh head for the mountains. Find high ground and set up defensive positions. Carter and I will move toward that supply depot our stolen data showed us. What's the real plan, Captain? Rodriguez asked. Morrison smiled grimly. We're going to show these aliens what humans do best. We adapt. Rodriguez and Walsh moved through the forest like ghosts. On Earth, Rodriguez had grown up hunting in the mountains of Colorado. Walsh had been a survival instructor before joining the space program. Together they knew how to read the signs of the wilderness. Look at these tracks, Walsh said, pointing to marks in the red moss. That's a pack hunter, probably the shadow cats we heard about. But see how the prints change here. Something bigger scared them off. They found what had scared the cats, a massive thorn bear, 12 feet tall and covered in poisonous spines. It was feeding on the remains of some smaller creature. Most people would have run. Rodriguez and Walsh started planning. Remember the grizzly bears back home? Rodriguez said. They're dangerous but predictable. This thing probably has the same basic instincts. They spent 2 hours studying the creature, learning its movement patterns and behavior. Then they set their trap. Using Walsh's engineering skills, they created a deadfall trap from fallen logs and boulders. But instead of trying to kill the thorn bear, they designed it to capture the creature alive. When the bear triggered the trap, it found itself caught but unharmed. Phase 1 complete, Rodriguez said as the angry bear roared in its cage of logs. Now we wait. Meanwhile, Morrison and Carter were making their own discoveries. The supply depot was lightly guarded because the Kythera never expected anyone to reach it. 2 guards lounged outside, bored and careless. Medical emergency, Carter announced as she stumbled out of the forest, appearing injured and helpless. The guards laughed and approached to capture what they thought was easy prey. They did not see Morrison drop from the trees above them. Years of zero-gravity training had made him incredibly good at moving in 3 dimensions. The guards went down without raising an alarm. Morrison and Carter now had access to Kythera weapons, communication equipment, and most importantly, detailed maps of the entire forest preserve. Look at this, Carter said, studying the data. The Kythera have emergency protocols for everything, including what to do if the forest predators ever work together. Interesting, Morrison replied. They're afraid of their own preserve. That gives us options. The 12-hour head start ended at sunset. 20 Kythera hunters entered the bleeding forests, confident they would find 4 frightened humans hiding in caves or up trees. Instead, they found something that changed everything. Hunter Veltarn was the first to encounter the new reality. He was tracking what he thought were human footprints when the ground collapsed beneath him. He fell into a pit filled with sharp stakes. Not enough to kill him, but enough to trap him and cause serious pain. Hunters, this is Veltarn, he called on his communicator. The humans have set traps, advanced traps, Before anyone could respond, something roared in the distance. It was a thorn bear, but the sound was wrong. Thorn bears were solitary creatures that avoided contact with others. This one sounded like it was calling for help. Hunter Gracknall investigated the sound and found something impossible. A thorn bear was working with two humans. The humans had somehow tamed one of the most dangerous creatures in the forest. They were using it to track Cathera hunters by scent. "This is not possible," Gracknall broadcast. "The humans have allied with the forest predators." The reports grew stranger as the night continued. Hunters found traps that used the forest's own dangerous plants as weapons. Communication equipment was jammed by signals coming from the stolen supply depot. Some hunters reported seeing humans riding shadow cats through the trees. But the most disturbing report came from Hunter Kexaval. He had cornered what he thought was an injured human near a stream. When he approached for the capture, the stream itself attacked him. Flying serpents erupted from the water in coordinated waves as if they had been waiting for his signal. The human, Amy Carter, stood calmly in the middle of the attack, somehow untouched by the deadly creatures. "How?" Kexval demanded as the serpents forced him back. Carter smiled. "We studied your medical files about these creatures. Did you know that flying serpents respond to specific pheromone signals? And did you know that humans can replicate those signals with the right combination of forest plants?" By midnight, half the hunting party was missing. 3 hunters were confirmed dead, killed by forest predators that were somehow working with the humans. The others were trapped, injured, or too frightened to continue. Commander Zektar received a communication from the forest that shattered his understanding of the natural order. It was Rodriguez's voice, calm and confident. "Commander, this is Lieutenant Rodriguez. We have a proposal for you. Call off your hunt and we'll return your hunters unharmed. Continue hunting us and learn what it means to become the prey." For the first time in 3,000 years of Cathara history, the hunters had become the hunted. Commander Zektar stared at the communication screen in disbelief. The voice of the human female was calm and confident, as if she was the one in control. Around him, his command center buzzed with panicked reports from the bleeding forests. "Sir, we've lost contact with 6 more hunters," reported his communications officer. The last transmission was just screaming. "How is this possible?" Zektar demanded. "They are just 4 humans against our best warriors." What he did not know was that the humans had spent the last 3 days doing more than just planning their escape. They had studied every piece of information they could gather about Cathera society, technology, and most importantly, their weaknesses. In the forests, the humans had created something the Cathera had never seen before, an alliance between intelligence and instinct. Rodriguez had discovered that the shadow cats responded to respect rather than fear. Instead of trying to dominate them, she had approached them as equals. Now a pack of 6 shadow cats followed her through the forest, hunting Cathera warriors with deadly precision. Walsh had gone even further. Using his engineering knowledge, he had modified captured Cathera equipment to communicate with the thorn bears. The massive creatures, it turned out, were far more intelligent than anyone realized. They had simply never had a reason to work together before humans showed them how. Captain Morrison and Amy Carter had turned the stolen supply depot into a command center. Using Cathera technology against them, they could monitor all hunter communications and predict their movements. More importantly, they had gained access to the prison systems back in the city. "Amy, how many prisoners are being held in the arena complex?" Morrison asked as he studied the security feeds. "Over 300 beings from 47 different species," Carter replied. "Most have been there for years. They've given up hope." "Not anymore," Morrison said with a grim smile. "It's time to give them something to hope for." Using the communication system, Morrison broadcast a message to every prison cell in the arena complex. His words were translated into dozens of languages by the Cathera's own systems. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of Earth. To all prisoners of the Cathera Empire, your liberation begins now. We are humans and we do not abandon our allies. Prepare yourselves." The effect was immediate. Creatures that had been broken and defeated for years suddenly remembered what it felt like to fight back. The Kythera guards found themselves facing, not cowering prisoners, but angry beings who outnumbered them 10-1. The prison riots began at dawn. What started as scattered fights quickly became organized rebellion as the freed prisoners worked together. Species that had been enemies on their homeworlds united against their common captors. In the bleeding forests, the situation was growing worse for the Kythera hunters. Rodriguez had discovered that the flying serpents could carry messages between different areas of the forest. Soon all the forest predators were working together in ways that violated every rule of nature the Kythera understood. Hunter Veltarn found himself surrounded by creatures that should have been fighting each other. Thorn bears, shadow cats, and flying serpents moved in perfect coordination, herding him toward a clearing where Rodriguez waited. "Surrender your weapons and communication device," she ordered. "You will not be harmed if you cooperate." "You are prey," Veltarn snarled. "Prey does not give orders to predators." Rodriguez gestured to the creatures surrounding him. "Look around you. Who is the prey now?" One by one, the Kythera hunters in the forest were captured or killed. Those who surrendered were treated well, but held prisoner. Those who continued to fight found themselves facing the combined fury of an entire ecosystem that had learned to work as one. Back in the capital city, High Predator Rakthor was receiving reports that shattered his understanding of the universe. The prison complexes were in full rebellion. His hunters in the forest were being systematically eliminated, and somehow the humans were behind all of it. "How many hunters have we lost?" he demanded. 15 confirmed dead, sir. 8 captured. The remaining hunters are requesting immediate evacuation." "Evacuation?" Rakthor roared. "We do not retreat from prey." "Sir," his aide said carefully, "I do not think they are prey anymore." The truth of this statement became clear when Morrison's next message arrived. This time, it was not just audio, but video. The transmission showed him standing in what was obviously a Kythera facility, surrounded by freed prisoners of multiple species. Behind him, captured Kythera hunters sat under guard. "High Predator Rakthor," Morrison said, looking directly into the camera. "I am Captain Morrison of Earth. We need to talk." "You dare to make demands of me?" Rakthor responded. "You are nothing but escaped prey." "Am I?" Morrison asked. "Let me show you something." The view changed to show the bleeding forests from above. What Rakthor saw was impossible. Thousands of forest predators were moving in organized formations. They had surrounded the main Kythera research station and were systematically dismantling it. The most dangerous creatures in the galaxy were working together like a military unit. "Your hunters taught us about your society," Morrison continued. "You built your entire civilization on the idea that might makes right, that the strong should dominate the weak. Well, congratulations, you just met something stronger than you." The transmission switched to show Rodriguez riding a massive thorn bear while shadow cats ran alongside them. Above, flying serpents filled the sky in formations that blocked out the sun. It was an army unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "This is impossible," Rakthor whispered. "How did you do this?" Amy Carter's voice joined the transmission. "We did what humans always do. We adapted, we learned, and we made allies instead of enemies. These creatures were never your enemies. They were just defending their homes from invaders." Walsh appeared on screen next. "Your technology is impressive, but it has weaknesses. We've been studying it for days. Would you like to see what we've learned?" The lights in Rakthor's command center went out. Emergency power kicked in, then failed. All around the capital city, Kythera technology began shutting down. The humans had somehow gained control of the planetary power grid. "This is what happens when you underestimate your prey," Morrison said as the transmission resumed. "You never asked what made humans successful on a death world. The answer is simple. We don't just survive in hostile environments. We take control of them." Commander Zektar entered Rakthor's command center with stunning news. "Sir, the humans have captured the Crimson Talon. They're using our own ship against us." On the screen, Rodriguez appeared on the bridge of the alien vessel. She was studying the controls as if she had been born to use them. Around her, freed prisoners operated Kithara technology with growing confidence. "Your mistake," she said, "was thinking that intelligence without claws made us weak. But intelligence is the ultimate weapon. It turns everything else into tools." Morrison returned to the screen with his final message. "We're going home now. All of us. Every prisoner you've taken. Every creature you've captured. We're returning them to their worlds, and we're taking your ships to do it." "You cannot leave," Rakthor said desperately. "You belong to us now." "No," Morrison replied. "We never belong to anyone. That's what makes us human. But you belong to us. Now every ship you send after us will be captured. Every hunter you train will learn to become prey. Your age of domination is over." The transmission ended with an image that would haunt Kithra nightmares for generations. Hundreds of freed prisoners and thousands of forest creatures stood together in the capital city. They were not destroying it, just occupying it. The message was clear. The hunters had become the hunted, and the prey had inherited the galaxy. The Kithara Empire, which had ruled for 3,000 years, surrendered for the first time in its history. Not to superior weapons or technology, but to something they had never understood. The power of cooperation, adaptation, and the simple human refusal to accept defeat. The age of the Great Hunt was over. The age of humanity had begun.